Hi, Lisa Golem here, and we're back today with a quick tutorial on painting evergreen trees, and then learning how to cover them with snow and maybe do some snowflakes falling. So last tutorial we painted some decorative snow, sort of a little abstracty. So now we're just going to put some trees on it. So first thing we do is we mixed 3 shades of green. Whatever greens you already have is great. Just use that green and then add some white to it and add some Payne's gray to it to make it the darker green. So there's my 3. Any 3 greens will do. We're just practicing. But you need 3 shades. I know people say you put 3 shades of green on the tree and then you add snow on top and you can't see half of it. It's like layering. It's all about the layers. Just like life, layers. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is start with the smaller brush, and I'm just going to use the darkest green. I mean, if I was trying to be fancy-pantsy, I might make a brown trunk, but I'm just going to use this dark green for the trunk for now. Now we need a fan brush. So we're going to take the fan brush, dip it just the end of it in that dark green. So as you can see, there's not a lot of paint on there because you don't want a ton of paint. So just like that. And I'm going to start with the corner of the fan brush at the very top and just dab a little twig at the top. And you get used to kind of how much of the fan brush you put set down. Just getting that like Christmas tree top. Now we can put a little more paint on the top. Now at this point, they start to get bigger, so the gravity weighs them down more. So once you get the first few sprongs on, I don't know. I start kind of doing a little bit of this sort of motion, dancing. I'm probably in the way. Sort of dancing back and forth. Just kind of, when you have more paint on the brush, you're probably tapping not quite as hard. As the paint gets more sparse, you can push a little harder with your brush. And then they're gonna hang really low at the bottom there. And then of course we try the next guy. So it's a matter of at some point they start pointing downwards. So we're just, or they can go straight out as well. Depends on the tree. There's lots of different kinds of evergreens. They're sort of, I'm putting more at the bottom. I don't know why, just because I can. So then we're gonna paint the, and you can see how fast, like I'm not taking a long time. I'm not speeding up the footage. This is real time. And when there's trees near each other, you start the one in the back and move forward because the one in front will be on top of that one, so you have to paint the back one first. If you're doing any trees that are in front of each other, that is. And then one more little, this little guy I might make a little more sparse and a little more intentional. He's just a little fella. There. First layer is done. There you go. As humans, we tend to make things more complicated than they are. This is really not very complicated. It might take a little practice, but it's really not that hard. You can do it. All right, so now we're going to the middle shade of green. Dipping my brush in that brighter green. That's way too much, so I'm just going to dab it off. So if it's you ever too much paint, you just dab it. So now we start to put our augmenting hat on. So the further we get into this, the more you're not trying to cover everything. You're just trying to augment, and you're not trying to obliterate the sky. You're still wanting some sky to peek through. here, this would be like Charlie Brown's Christmas tree. It's kind of scraggly. There we go. Guess what we're doing next? Same thing, but with the lightest green. All right, so now we got that lightest green on our bristles, and we're doing the same thing again. Every color lighter, you're going to do a little less of it, because I don't want to cover up all this, but I'm going to kind of, this is like the highlights. Now the snow is going to cover up quite a bit of this anyway, so you don't need it to be perfect. Just get some light in there. So if you weren't painting a winter scene, these would be your evergreens. And you could call it done. While we're waiting for that to dry, another quick tip when you paint trees, a tree would always cast a shadow on the ground. So the shadow color, mix some Payne's gray and some white. Now the trick with shadows is I'm going to put a lot of water in this mix, and I won't be able to hold it up because it would drip, but I'm going to put quite a few brushfuls of water into that mix, because that creates transparency, which is the secret to nice shadows. Because the shadow color should not block out what the snow looks like. It should just darken it a titch. Once I get my brush loaded, I'm just going to wipe it off on my cloth a little bit. And then I'm just going to go underneath those Christmas trees or those evergreens and just kind of do a little bit of this. To create a little bit of shadows underneath those trees. You can see the transparency and how much water I have in this paint. I'm just going to take my finger quick and just sort of rub a little bit to subtle them up and soften any brush strokes that are there. The shadows are kind of soft. You don't want a ton of brush strokes. So there you go, shadows. So for the snow, we want a smaller, for this size canvas anyway, we want a smaller filbert, which is a rounded brush on the top, and pure white. So there's my white from before. So I'm going to put my filbert in that white, both sides, get her loaded up. So I'm just basically going to kind of hold it sideways and just set it down and plant it. And I kind of look to see where the branches are. And this is after a really dense recent snowfall, when it's all clinging and just sitting thick on the branches. It gets that vibe. So now that I'm near the top of this one, I'm not putting as much on, just a little tiny bit of snow. There we go. You really have to overload the brush and just get those clumps, because that's what looks like real snow. Now, as many artists as are on the planet, there'd be that many different ways to do this. So just so you are aware, just because I do it this way, you might try it and say, oh, that doesn't work for me at all. Find some other tutorials and see how other artists do it. That's perfectly wonderful. Because you know what? There is more than one way to paint a painting. I was going to say skin a painting, but I knew that wasn't right. day or two, I might I don't know, do some penguins or something. I don't know what I'm going to do to this. Let me know in the comments what you think I should add to this painting, because I think it's going to be a painting. I wasn't intending it necessarily to be a finished painting when I was done, but it might be. Who knows? I did forget I was going to show you how to make snow fall. So I'm going to take some of this white and I'm going to mix a lot of water into it, enough so that it'll spritz off of this old toothbrush. So once you get it nice watery white on there, you just kind of go flick, 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 flick. Flick, 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 flick. You can see a little bit of snowfall. Thanks for hanging with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because I love you guys. I don't want you to miss out on any of the videos. See you next time. Peace and love.